Listen, I know that hit in your stomach when you saw the Cowboys trade for Quinton Williams. I felt it too. The screenshots, the takes, the hot takes. Some people were calling it desperate, others were calling it reckless, and a lot of fans were just plain embarrassed. But before you start uninstalling the app and blaming Jerry for everything, let's pause and put this trade into the simple terms that matter. This move doesn't magically make Dallas a Super Bowl favorite overnight. And it doesn't automatically mean the front office threw good value away. What it does do is give the team credibility on the defensive line and begin to reshape the roster for next year. That's important, even if it's not headline glory stuff. You heard the reactions: anger, disbelief, even jokes. And that's natural. This team has been an emotional roller coaster recently. One minute you're hyped, the next you're wondering why you're still watching the games. That's why this trade matters beyond the on-field snap. It's a signal that the organization is actively trying to fix a problem. Not all signals are created equal, but sometimes you take a step that's meant to stop the bleeding and build some momentum. Think of it as trying to restore respectability for a unit that's been getting gashed play after play. In the comments, type short if you think this trade helps the Cowboys right now, or long if you think it's strictly about next year. I want to see where the fan base lands. And if you want more breakdowns like this, hit subscribe and help us push to 16,000 subscribers. Every new subscriber makes these deeper videos possible. While you type that, let me say the key point. Everything people are shouting about the price. The first, the second, the player included, looks worse in the heat of the moment than it often is in context. I'll break that down next. When the alert first hit about the Cowboys giving up a first, a second, and Mazi Smith for Quinton Williams, a lot of fans just froze. The immediate reaction was, wait, what? We gave up that much? And at first glance, yeah, it looks like a steep price. But here's the thing, context always changes the math. You can't just look at draft picks on a chart and assume every pick turns into an all-pro. The Cowboys' recent history with defensive tackles and second-round selections tells a very different story. One that actually makes this move make more sense than it looks on paper. Think about it. Dallas has spent years trying to find an interior defensive presence who could consistently stop the run and collapse the pocket. We've cycled through Quinton Bohanna, Neville Gallimore, John Ridgway, and Mazi Smith. Each of those names came with hope, and every one of them left fans frustrated. So when you trade a second-rounder for a proven force like Quinton Williams, it's not really mortgaging the future. It's acknowledging that the development route hasn't worked. It's the difference between hoping a rookie grows into that player and just getting the guy right now who already is that player. Now let's tackle that first-round pick everyone's talking about, because this part is crucial. The first being traded isn't the Cowboys' primary pick this year. It's the extra first-rounder they acquired in the Micah-related transaction. That's a different asset class. It's surplus capital. Using that pick to secure a known interior force is not the same as giving up your top 10 pick to make a fee splash. They're deploying capital they already had to address a position that's been a hole for years. That's smart roster management, not desperation. About the player swap. Moving on from Mazi Smith hurts emotionally because you always want to believe your early picks are the future. But when a player doesn't develop and can't consistently hold up against NFL competition, sometimes the best move is to reset rather than double down. The Cowboys made a hard business decision to get a consistent difference maker now, rather than waiting another 2 seasons for something that might never happen. Williams may not be having a career-best year statistically, but even on a step back, his performance is leagues ahead of what Dallas has gotten at tackle since Jay Ratliff's prime. That's real value. When analysts go on air calling it too much, they're often looking at numbers without considering Dallas's track record in those same rounds. You can say a first and a second is crazy, but if your recent seconds have been wasted opportunities, what's the real loss? This team's pattern shows that defensive tackle has been a blind spot in the draft for a decade. That's why this front office finally pulled the trigger to buy reliability instead of potential. That's also why this move shouldn't be read as an all-in for this season. It's a strategic pivot. Now let's talk about the part that nobody finds glamorous, but which always decides how these moves age: the salary cap. The cap is where great rosters are built or broken. And believe it or not, this trade didn't blow up the Cowboys' financials. In fact, it may have helped set up a cleaner path for next season. When people first saw the trade details, the reaction was panic. How can we afford that? We're already over the cap. But if you actually look at the structure, Dallas isn't drowning the way national media makes it sound. Even after adding Williams, the Cowboys still expect roughly $20 million to roll over into next season. That matters. Yes, current projections show them roughly $35 million over when the books close. But that number doesn't account for moves they can and likely will make. Players like Trevon Diggs and Terrence Steele are prime candidates for post-June 1st designations or other cap maneuvers that could clear close to $30 million. That alone rebalances the ledger. Add in the contract flexibility built into deals for Dak, ceedee, Osa, and others, and you realize the front office structured for options this time. They learned from past mistakes where they backed themselves into corners. Remember Jerry's admission about not doing enough in the Romo era? This looks like an attempt to avoid that again with Dak. Keep core pieces, free space where needed, and build a defense that's sustainable rather than top-heavy. Also, Quinton Williams' cap hit isn't as painful as headlines suggest. Compared to a hypothetical long-term deal for Micah Parsons, Dallas actually saves roughly $7 million a year by pursuing this route. That money is non-trivial. And don't forget the non-monetary value. You're not betting internal development on someone who hasn't shown consistent NFL dominance. You're buying a stable, known contributor, and that certainty allows the team to plan other moves without overpaying for maybes. Now, I'm not saying the cap problems vanish. There will be hard choices. There may be a name or two fans love that gets moved on. But the narrative that this trade crippled Dallas financially is inaccurate. A better way to think about it is pruning a tree. It might look rough now, but you're cutting back to encourage healthier growth next season. If you want a deep dive on how post-June 1st cuts and cap designations work for teams like Dallas, type cap in the comments, and I'll make that video. And while you're there, hit like. Every like tells YouTube you want smart analysis over noise. So, what does this do on the field? That's the real test. The Cowboys' defense has been inconsistent. Highlight reel sacks one drive, blown assignments the next. Adding Quinton Williams isn't about a single stat line. It's about changing the very identity of the front. Picture this: Osa Odigizua at one tackle spot, Kenny Clark anchoring at nose, and Quinton Williams on the other interior gap. On the edges, you still have Clowney and Donovan Ease as potential bookends. That's a five-man front with power, size, and experience. Something Dallas has lacked. Suddenly, teams can't just bully your interior line in the run game, and you can start collapsing pockets without needing constant blitzes. That kind of interior control frees up linebackers to flow downhill instead of getting stuck in traffic. And it prevents the secondary from being left exposed on 3rd and long after a 5-yard run turns into a long drive first down. When your interior can demand double teams, your whole defense plays faster and cleaner. This isn't an overnight fix. You won't flip a switch and become a shutdown defense next week, but it gives you an identity and a foundation. That's what turns hopeful teams into repeat contenders. Now, let's be realistic. This doesn't guarantee a playoff push this season. The transcript voice said it best. This is partly about building next year. Use the last stretch of games as reps for a scheme and a core that can grow. If the defense gels and the offense stabilizes, great. Maybe you make a push. If it doesn't, at least you've created a piece of a sustainable long-term plan. Either way, the point is you now have a clearer direction, and it changes more than just the play calls. Free agents see a team willing to invest in defense. Rookies coming in learn in a system that demands toughness and discipline. Opposing game planning has to account for a tougher interior. Even Jerry Jones's demeanor in the off-season interviews will shift. When the front office is proactive, the narrative around the franchise is different. So where does all of this leave us? Call it what you want: bold, risky, necessary. But my verdict is this: I think it was the right move. Not because Williams is going to solve every problem, but because this trade signals a front office that recognized a repeated failure and acted decisively. For too long, the Cowboys have been content with good enough. That wasn't going to get them back to the top. This is the kind of bold, corrective action the franchise needed. Yes, there are risks. You lost draft capital, and you're betting on this core staying healthy and improving. Dak Prescott still needs better protection and consistency. The offensive line has wrinkles to fix, and the roster still needs trimming in places. There's a chance you end up in the same 9-8 or 10-7 purgatory. But if you do, at least the team will have a plan and an identity to build from. For a long-suffering fan base, that's meaningful. It's something to believe in. All right, Cowboys fan, your turn. In the comments, drop short or long to tell me whether you think this helps now or later. Type yes or no if you think the trade was too expensive. Rate this new front 1 to 5 for how confident you are in it, and hit cap if you want a deep dive on the salary mechanics. Also, tell me which follow-up you want. A for a cap deep dive, B for a 53-man roster projection, or C for a Micah-focused piece. I read as many replies as I can, and I want to hear your take. If you're still watching, you're the real ones. Hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and turn notifications on so you don't miss the next breakdown. We're pushing to 16,000 subscribers, and every single new subscriber helps us bring you smarter, more focused content. Thanks for sticking through the whole breakdown. This trade was messy and emotional, and that's okay. It's part of being a fan. The important thing is the team finally made a decisive play. Now we sit back, watch how it unfolds, and keep